The dining room glowed with candles as I carried the chocolate cake toward the table. I'd spent all afternoon baking it, getting the frosting just right. Leo sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his friends, barely glancing up from his phone. When I set down the scrapbook I'd made, filled with photos from the years I raised him, his lip curled. "What am I supposed to do with this old stuff?" he said loud enough for everyone to hear. His friends laughed. Then he looked right at me and said it. "You're useless, Grandma. You can't even afford a real gift." The laughter got louder. My son Patrick stared at his plate. My daughter-in-law Brianna smirked behind her wine glass. Nobody defended me. The candles blurred as tears filled my eyes. I stood there holding that cake, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my 69 years. Then I caught my reflection in the dark window behind Leo's head. Something in my chest went cold and hard. Maybe, I thought, it's time they learned what useless really looks like. My name is Martha Ellison, and I used to be a teacher. For 37 years, I taught 7th grade English at Riverside Middle School. I raised my son Patrick after my husband Thomas died of a heart attack when Patrick was only 12. Money was always tight, but we managed. Patrick married young to a sweet girl named Anne, who gave us Leo. When Anne died in a car accident, Leo was only 3. Patrick fell apart completely. So I stepped in. I fed Leo breakfast every morning, walked him to kindergarten, helped with homework, tucked him into bed. I did that for years while Patrick worked double shifts trying to cope with his grief. Then Patrick met Brianna at some company event. She was 15 years younger, confident, ambitious. They married fast. Suddenly, Patrick had a new life, a new family unit. They needed help getting started, Patrick said. Just temporarily, he promised. So I let them move into this house, the one Thomas and I bought 40 years ago, the house where I raised Patrick. The house where I'd planned to grow old peacefully. That was 4 years ago. They never left. I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard their voices drifting from the kitchen. Patrick's voice was low but clear. "We can list the house once Mom moves into Meadow Pines," he said. "She won't even notice the transfer if we time it right." Brianna laughed softly. "The retirement place has an opening next month. We just need to convince her it's for her own good." My hands froze on the towel I was holding. "What about Leo?" Patrick asked. "He doesn't care," Brianna said dismissively. "He barely talks to her anymore anyway." I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. They were planning to take my house. The house Thomas and I saved for, painted together, raised our son in. The house where I'd comforted Patrick after his father died, where I'd rocked baby Leo to sleep 1,000 times. I backed away slowly and went straight to my bedroom. In the back of my closet sat Thomas's old lockbox, dusty and forgotten. I pulled it down with shaking hands. Inside were papers they didn't know existed. Papers that would change everything. The lockbox key was taped inside my jewelry box where I'd hidden it years ago. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside lay the original property deed, yellowed but perfectly preserved. The house was in my name only. Thomas had insisted on that after his father lost everything in a bad business deal. "Protect yourself, Martha," he'd told me. "Always have something that's just yours." Beneath the deed was a handwritten note in Thomas's familiar scrawl. "The house belongs solely to Martha. Protect it, no matter what. I love you forever. T." I pressed the note to my chest and cried. Not sad tears, but angry ones, grateful ones. Then I looked through the rest of the documents. Birth certificates, marriage license, Thomas's will. Everything was in order. Everything was mine. But when I checked the recent property tax bills, I noticed something wrong. They'd been arriving in Patrick's name for the past 6 months. My stomach dropped. They were already setting things up, making it look like they owned this place, making it easier to push me out. The next morning, I brought up the property tax bill at breakfast. "Patrick, honey, I noticed the bill came in your name this time," I said carefully. Brianna looked up from her coffee, eyes sharp. "Oh, Martha, you must be confused," she said with a patronizing smile. "The lawyer explained it to us. Since we've been living here and maintaining the property, it made sense to put things in joint ownership. For tax purposes." Patrick nodded without meeting my eyes. "It's for your own good, Mom. This way, if anything happens to you, the house doesn't get tied up in probate. Everything stays in the family." I blinked at them, letting my face show confusion even though inside I was calculating. "I don't remember signing anything," I said softly. "Of course you did," Brianna said. "Last month when you signed those papers for Patrick's business. Remember?" I didn't remember, because it never happened, but I just nodded slowly. "I suppose you're right. My memory isn't what it used to be." Brianna patted my hand. "Don't worry. We'll handle everything." After they left for work, I photographed every document on the kitchen table. Every bill, every statement, evidence. I called Evelyn that afternoon. Evelyn Cooper and I taught together for 20 years before she left education to become a paralegal. She'd helped me with Thomas's estate and always told me to call if I needed anything. "Martha, it's so good to hear from you," she said warmly. Then I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the property bills, the way they were positioning themselves to take the house. Evelyn's voice went cold and professional. "Don't let them know what you have," she said. "Don't show them those original documents yet. We need to be strategic." She asked me to bring everything to her office the next day. "Martha, this is serious," she said. "If they're forging signatures or manipulating documents, that's fraud. But we need to build a case carefully." Before we hung up, she added something that made my blood run cold. "Martha, you might want to check your bank statements next. If they're willing to take the house, they might have already helped themselves to other things." I pulled up my bank account on the computer. My hands shook as I scrolled through months of transactions. There they were. Withdrawals I never made. $500 here, $800 there, $1,200 last month. All labeled home maintenance or property repairs. I added up the numbers with growing horror. Over $14,000 had been taken from my account in the past year. My teacher's pension was modest but sufficient. I lived simply. I saved carefully, and they'd been bleeding me dry without me noticing. I called Evelyn back immediately. "They've been stealing from me," I whispered. She was quiet for a moment. "That's fraud, Martha. And it's traceable. Every transaction leaves a trail." Her voice softened. "I know this hurts. But this is actually good for us. It establishes a pattern of financial abuse. Combined with the property manipulation, we have a strong case." "What do I do?" I asked. "Nothing yet," she said. "Act normal. Let them think you're oblivious. Meanwhile, print out every statement. Save every receipt. We're building a paper trail that will protect you and expose them." I hung up and stared at the numbers on the screen. $14,000. Money that could have gone to Leo's college fund. Money I'd saved for emergencies. Gone. Over the next 2 weeks, I became an actress. I smiled at breakfast, asked how their days went, complimented Brianna's cooking even though she rarely cooked. I pretended to forget where I put my reading glasses. I asked Patrick to explain how to use the television remote I'd been using for 5 years. I played confused, elderly, declining. Brianna ate it up. "Poor thing," she told her sister on the phone while I pretended to nap nearby. "She's really going downhill. We'll probably need to move her to assisted living sooner rather than later." She didn't whisper. She didn't care if I heard. To her, I was already gone, already erased. Patrick started talking to me slowly, using simple words like I was a child. "Mom, Do you understand? We're going to take care of everything. You don't need to worry about bills or the house or anything. I nodded gratefully. You're so good to me, I said. Meanwhile, every document they touched, I photographed. Every conversation I could record safely, I did. Evelyn texted me one evening. Paper trail complete, time for step 2. Step 2 meant reclaiming the deed officially. Evelyn drove me to the town clerk's office on a Wednesday morning. The clerk, a woman about my age named Violet, pulled up the property records. The house is still legally in your name only, Mrs. Ellison, she confirmed. Nobody can change that without your signature witnessed by a notary. I felt a wave of relief. But I want to make sure it stays that way, I said. Violet nodded. We can transfer it into a living trust with you as the sole trustee. That way it's protected from any claims or manipulations. Even family members can't touch it without your explicit written consent. Evelyn helped me fill out the paperwork. We created the Martha Ellison Living Trust and transferred the house deed into it. I was the only trustee with full control. The process took 2 hours. When it was done, Violet stamped the final document. There, she said, this house is yours and only yours now, completely protected. As we walked out, Evelyn asked quietly, the trust allows you to name beneficiaries. Would you like to add Patrick? I thought about Leo's cruel words, about the stolen money, about them planning to warehouse me. No, I said. Not yet. That night, Leo had friends over. They took over the living room with their video games and loud music. I walked by carrying a basket of laundry. One of Leo's friends asked him something about college applications. My dad says Grandma's going to help pay, Leo said. Then he laughed. But honestly, she doesn't even know how to use Wi-Fi. She's basically useless. His friends laughed. I kept walking like I hadn't heard. But my phone was recording in my cardigan pocket. Later that night, I listened to the audio file. His voice saying useless so casually, like it was just a fact. I saved the file carefully. Evelyn had taught me to document everything. In cases like this, she'd said, people show you who they are when they think you're not paying attention. Record it. Save it. It's not about revenge, Martha. It's about protection. I labeled the file with the date and uploaded it to a secure cloud account. Evidence. Because I knew now that this wasn't just about the house. It was about my dignity, my life, my right to exist without being discarded like trash. A week after Leo's birthday, Brianna slid an envelope across the kitchen table toward me. Martha, we've been thinking, she said with false sweetness. You shouldn't have to worry about money anymore, so we're setting up a monthly allowance for you. Inside the envelope was $200 in cash and a printed note on flowered stationery. Your monthly budget, please be responsible. Don't overspend. $200 for groceries, medications, personal needs, everything. Less than they'd been stealing from me each month. I looked up at Brianna's smiling face. Thank you, dear, I said softly. This is very generous. Patrick wouldn't look at me. It's for the best, Mom. This way you don't have to think about finances. We'll take care of everything else. I folded the money carefully and put it in my pocket. That night, I added it to a growing envelope in my closet. I hadn't spent a penny of their allowance. Every dollar they gave me was fuel for what was coming. Evidence of their control. Proof that they treated me like a child, like property. The envelope grew thicker each week. Evelyn called me on a Tuesday with news that made my hands shake. Martha, I found something, she said. Patrick used your signature on a refinancing document 6 months ago. The signature is obviously forged. The notary stamp is fake. This is serious fraud. My voice came out as a whisper. Can we fix it? We can reverse it and file a report, Evelyn said. But Martha, I have a better idea. Instead of just exposing them, let's create something positive from this situation. Something that ensures your legacy isn't about being their victim. She explained her idea. We could create a charitable trust, something focused on helping others, funded by my estate. Your house, your savings, everything you've worked for can go towards something meaningful, not to them. What kind of charity? I asked. You were a teacher for decades, Evelyn said gently. You raised children, including your grandson. What if we created a youth education fund? Arts programs, scholarships, things that actually help kids who need it. I thought of the children I'd taught, the ones who came from nothing but had everything inside them. Yes, I said. Let's do that. I started visiting the Riverside Youth Center the following week. The director, a kind man named Marcus Flynn, gave me a tour. The center helped at-risk kids with tutoring, art programs, and mentorship. Their funding was thin. Supplies were sparse, but the kids were bright and eager. I started volunteering on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, helping with homework and reading groups. It reminded me why I became a teacher in the first place. These kids needed someone to believe in them. I began funding supplies quietly, anonymously. New books for the library, art supplies, musical instruments. Marcus noticed. We've been receiving anonymous donations, he told me one day. Someone's been incredibly generous. If you know who it is, please tell them how grateful we are. I just smiled. 2 weeks later, Marcus insisted on meeting me in his office. Martha, I found out the donations are coming from you. We want to name the new reading program after you, the Ellison Learning Corner. My eyes filled with tears. That would be wonderful, I whispered. Brianna noticed my new energy at dinner one evening. You've been going out a lot lately, she said, studying me with narrow eyes. Patrick looked up from his phone. Where have you been going, Mom? You're not planning something foolish, are you? I smiled sweetly. Just living what's left of my life, dear. The doctor said staying active is important at my age. Brianna exchanged a look with Patrick. We just worry about you, she said, but her voice was cold. You're getting older. It would be terrible if something happened to you while you were out, wandering around. The threat was subtle but clear. After dinner, I heard them talking in their bedroom. She's acting strange, Brianna said. Maybe we should move up the timeline. Let's give it another month, Patrick replied. The Meadow Pines paperwork isn't ready yet. I went to my room and texted Evelyn everything I'd heard. Her response was immediate. Document everything. We're almost ready to move. Almost ready. The words felt like a promise. 2 days later, Patrick came home from work with a letter in his hand and fury on his face. The refinancing he'd illegally processed had been nullified. The bank wanted answers. His face was pale as he stormed into the kitchen where I was making tea. Mom, did you do something with the house paperwork? He demanded. I looked up innocently. I wouldn't know about those things, dear. You handle all that, remember? The bank is saying the refinance was fraudulent, he said, voice rising. They're investigating. Did you talk to someone? I stirred my tea slowly. I don't understand what you're asking, Patrick. Brianna appeared in the doorway. Martha, this is serious. If you interfered with legal documents, there could be consequences. I met her eyes calmly. I'm just an old woman who doesn't understand these things. Isn't that what you've been telling everyone? Patrick slammed his hand on the counter. You'll regret this, he said, then stormed out. The front door shook the whole house when he left. I sipped my tea. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I'd learned to be careful, to think ahead. The next afternoon while they were at work, I left my phone recording under the couch cushions. When they came home, I pretended to nap in my bedroom. Through the thin walls, I heard everything. She's becoming a problem, Brianna said. I knew we should have moved her out sooner. We need to have her declared incompetent, Patrick said. Then we can get power of attorney and fix this mess. That senile leech has been playing us, Brianna hissed. She's more aware than she's letting on. We need to act fast before she ruins everything. They talked for 20 minutes, planning how to convince a doctor I was mentally unfit, how to take control of my finances, how to sell the house out from under me. When I retrieved my phone later, the recording was crystal clear. Every word, every plan, every cruel insult. I emailed the file to Evelyn immediately. Her response came within minutes. This is exactly what we needed. They just sealed their own fate. Patrick called a family meeting on Sunday afternoon. We sat in the living room, me on one side, the three of them facing me like a tribunal. Mom, we've made a decision, Patrick began. We think it's time you moved into Meadow Pines Retirement Community. They have excellent care, activities, everything you need. Leo slouched in his chair, bored. Can I have her room when she's gone? He asked. Brianna shot him a look but didn't disagree. I folded my hands in my lap. I see, I said quietly. When were you thinking? Patrick looked relieved. Next month. We've already put down a deposit. It's a lovely place, Mom. You'll be happy there. You'll be around people your own age, Brianna added. Much better than being alone in this big house. I nodded slowly, letting them think I was accepting this. Then I said, May I ask for one thing? Of course, Patrick said. One final family dinner, I said. All of us together. Before I go. Next Saturday? They exchanged glances. Sure, Mom, Patrick said. We can do that. They had no idea what I'd just set in motion. Saturday arrived. I cooked all day, making all of Patrick's favorite dishes from his childhood. Brianna complained about the smell. Leo disappeared to his room, but I set the table carefully, using the good china. At 6 o'clock, we sat down to eat. The doorbell rang just as Patrick lifted his fork. I'll get it, I said. Evelyn stood on the porch in a sharp navy blazer carrying a leather briefcase. Patrick's face went white when he saw her. Mom, what's going on? This is Evelyn Cooper, I said calmly. She's a paralegal and an old friend. I asked her to join us this evening. Evelyn entered and set her briefcase on the dining table. Mr. Ellison, Mrs. Ellison, I'm here to inform you that as of this morning, this property has been legally transferred into the Ellison Youth Education Trust. She pulled out documents. Mrs. Martha Ellison is the sole trustee. The property can no longer be sold, transferred, or mortgaged without her explicit consent. Patrick stood up so fast his chair fell over. What did you do? He shouted. Brianna's face was frozen in shock. Evelyn continued in a professional tone. Additionally, we have evidence of financial fraud, identity theft, and attempted coercion. She opened her laptop and played the recording. Brianna's voice filled the room. That senile leech has been playing us. Patrick's voice. We need to have her declared incompetent. Leo's face went pale as his own recorded voice played next. You're useless, Grandma. You can't even afford a real gift. The silence after was crushing. Patrick sputtered, trying to find words. Brianna started crying. I reached across the table and slid the trust documents toward Patrick. You wanted the house, I said quietly. You planned to take it, sell it, erase me. But it's not mine to give anymore. It belongs to something bigger now. Something that will actually help people. Mom, please, Patrick whispered. We can fix this. We didn't mean those things. Yes, you did, I said. And now you'll live with the consequences. Evelyn packed her briefcase. You have 60 days to vacate the premises. The trust requires this property for its charitable purposes. The video leaked within 3 days. I never found out exactly how, though I suspected Marcus from the youth center had a connection to someone at the local news. Suddenly, Leo's cruel words were everywhere. You're useless, Grandma. You can't even afford a real gift. The clip showed his sneer, his friends laughing, the homemade scrapbook I'd made. The comments were brutal. How could anyone treat their grandmother like that? This kid deserves everything coming to him. The whole family should be ashamed. Brianna's workplace called her in for a meeting. Her promotion was suddenly on hold pending review of personal conduct issues. Patrick's business partners started distancing themselves. Leo's school friends saw the video. He came home one day with red eyes, saying kids were calling him names. "They're calling me a monster, Grandma," he said. I felt a twist of pain but held firm. Actions have consequences, Leo. You're learning that now. The video had over 2 million views by the end of the week. The official eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday. Patrick opened it at the breakfast table, hands shaking. 60 days, he read aloud. We have 60 days to vacate the property. Brianna stood up abruptly. This is insane. We have rights. We've lived here for 4 years. You lived here as guests in my home, I said calmly. Guests who stole from me, planned to institutionalize me, and treated me like garbage. Now the house serves a better purpose. Patrick looked at me with something like desperation. Mom, please, where are we supposed to go? This will destroy us. I sipped my coffee. You told me you'd take care of everything, Patrick. You still can. Just not with me, and not with my house. He tried negotiating, begging, threatening. Brianna called a lawyer who told them they had no case. The property transfer was legal. The trust was ironclad. Their fraud was documented. By the end of the week, they'd stopped talking to me entirely. They moved through the house like ghosts, packing boxes in silence. Leo appeared at my bedroom door one evening, alone. His eyes were swollen from crying. Grandma, I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean it. I was trying to be cool in front of my friends. I didn't mean you were actually useless. I looked at the boy I'd raised, the child I'd loved more than my own life. Part of me wanted to pull him close and forgive everything, but another part, the part that had learned hard lessons, stayed firm. Leo, I believe you're sorry now, I said gently. I believe you're hurting, but you need to understand why this happened. You didn't just hurt my feelings. You showed me I didn't matter to you anymore. You do matter, he cried. I was stupid. I was mean. Please, Grandma. I pulled him into a hug, letting him cry on my shoulder like he had when he was small. I love you, Leo. I always will. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. You'll learn from this. You'll become a better person. But it has to hurt first. Before he left, I handed him an envelope. Open this later, I said. Inside was information about a college scholarship fund, anonymous, waiting for him. Patrick's business collapsed within a month. Investors pulled out after the story spread. His reputation in the community was destroyed. Brianna moved out, filing for separation. She couldn't handle being associated with the scandal. Patrick found a small apartment across town. On the day they moved out, he stood in the empty living room one last time. I failed you, Mom, he said. I failed Dad. I failed Leo. I failed everyone. I felt a complicated mix of sadness and relief. Yes, you did, I said honestly. But you can still choose to be better. You can still teach Leo what it means to be a good man. You just can't do it here. He nodded, tears running down his face. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know, I said. And I did. But sorry wasn't enough to undo what had been done. After they left, I walked through the empty house. It felt lighter somehow, like it could breathe again. Evelyn called. The cottage paperwork is ready, she said, whenever you want to move. The seaside cottage was small, just 2 bedrooms with walls painted a cheerful yellow. It sat on a quiet street 3 blocks from the ocean. I could hear waves from the porch. The youth center kids came to visit on weekends, helping me plant a garden, painting a mural on the fence. Marcus brought the whole reading group one Saturday, and we had a picnic in the yard. They called me Miss Martha and showed me their book reports. I felt alive again, young again, useful. The trust funded new programs at the center: art classes, music lessons, tutoring for kids who'd fallen behind. They named the scholarship fund after Thomas, my late husband. Every year, 10 kids would get help with college. I sat on my porch at sunset watching the sky turn pink and gold. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Then I realized it was a new number. Leo's. "Grandma, this is my new phone. Can I come visit?" I smiled. "Yes," I typed back. "Come this weekend." A handwritten letter arrived 2 days later. Leo's letter was 3 pages long, written in careful cursive I'd taught him years ago. He wrote about how ashamed he felt, how he'd been volunteering at the youth center to try to make things right. He wrote about the kids he'd met there, about how they reminded him of the boy he used to be before he got mean. "I want to be better, Grandma," he wrote. "I want to make you proud again. I know I can't erase what I said or how I treated you, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm not that person anymore. The scholarship fund you set up? I found out it was you. Thank you. I don't deserve it, but I promise I'll use it to become someone who does." I cried reading his words. Not sad tears this time, but hopeful ones. Saturday morning, Leo arrived at my cottage carrying a small plant. "For your garden," he said shyly. We spent the day together, really together, talking like we hadn't in years. As the sun set over the ocean, I sat in my rocking chair with tea in my hands. Leo sat on the porch steps, watching the waves. "They said I was useless," I whispered into the evening breeze, smiling. "Turns out, I just stopped being used."